For this program, we welcome conductor Michael Stern, the music director of the Kansas City Symphony. The concert begins with the Overture to la Forza del Destino by Verdi. Forza is one of Verdi's most bloody and violent operas. The overture seethes with melodrama from its very first note. The opening brass exclamations create a heavy sense of foreboding before an agitated theme in the string begins, representing the tragic destiny of the characters. And although it's perhaps not Verdi's most subtle overture, it's a brilliantly theatrical and thrilling start to this bombastic concert. Next, we welcome back William Hagen, a brilliant young violinist who's appeared all over the US. He'll be playing Bruch's ever-popular, wistfully romantic G minor violin concerto. Shostakovich's 10th Symphony contains 48 minutes of tragedy, despair, terror, and violence, and around 2 minutes of triumph. It's often read as a depiction of the Stalin Soviet years, during which anything between 8 and 20 million people died. Most people lived in a state of constant fear. Shostakovich had a complicated relationship with the state. Although he was a product of the Soviet education system, he fell foul of official approval after Stalin's catastrophic denouncement of his 4th Symphony. An article appeared in Pravda, the official magazine of the state, and called his 4th Symphony muddle, not music. This was about the most terrifying thing that could happen to a creative artist during this period. And although Shostakovich was officially rehabilitated with the successful performance of his 5th Symphony, which he subtitled An Artist's Response to Just Criticism, he remained extremely cautious about the kind of music he wrote, or rather the kind of music he presented in public. Some scholars claim that in the 10th Symphony, Shostakovich depicts Stalin directly. It was completed in 1953 after Stalin's death, and contains a grim depiction of suffering that had been absent in the symphonies since the 4th. The first movement is extended. It's almost half the length of the entire symphony, and it begins with a long-breathed, dark, ominous theme that begins in the cellos and basses. Almost immediately we feel the weight of Shostakovich's sadness. The music builds slowly to an impassioned, wrenching climax. The second movement is a march, and it's often cited as a musical portrait of Stalin himself. The orchestra plays fortissimo against the terrifying, gunfire-like clamor of a military side drum. This is music of unremitting terror and violence. It's as if Shostakovich is simultaneously depicting the horror of Stalin's personality while standing triumphantly on his grave. The third movement is a waltz, and it has a typically sarcastic tone that Shostakovich often adopts, that he took from the music of Mahler. There's a subterfuge behind the seemingly placid exterior. We can't trust what this music seems to be telling us, and we have to be aware that all is not well. In this movement, we get the first appearance of a Shostakovich fingerprint. He liked to write a cipher of his initials into the music. He used to take his initials DSCH, Dmitri Shostakovich, and turn them into notes. D as a D, S, which in German nomenclature can mean E flat, C, C, and H, which can mean B natural. Ba, 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 DSCH. And he uses that as a kind of musical fingerprint to show that he's really there behind the music, when we hear that for the first time in the third movement. The fourth movement begins with an introduction, after which a manic clarinet solo quickly returns us to the nightmare territory of the first movement. The nightmare continues for a while until finally the signature DSCH motive returns, hammered out by the full orchestra, fortissimo, signifying the individual or Shostakovich's triumph over the soulless, dehumanizing regime of Stalin.